Cardano just surpassed 20 million transactions. That's 20 million in 1,522 days, according to this post by @Cardano Tech. In that time, we haven't had to turn the blockchain off and on, and there's been no sign that we'll have to rip everything apart and rebuild it just so that we can scale. In fact, Cardano may be the only top 10 project living up to the Gen 3 promise. While that doesn't mean anything to the current crop of mono-focused price degens, it might mean everything over the longer term. Ready? Let's go. We're going to talk about Cardano hitting this crazy benchmark, a first look at a world mobile Aerostat, Pavia Avatars, Cardano 360 this Thursday, Jerome Powell's second term, a Plutus application backend released today, and CoinMarketCap finally showing Cardano native tokens. This post kind of says it all, guys. We've been live for 1,522 days, and we've done 20 million transactions. There haven't been any outages. There hasn't been downtime. We haven't had to turn our blockchain off and on like we're on the phone with some kind of a tech support team or something. We've just run. It's been unstoppable for 20 million transactions. We don't even really have dApps yet, and we've already done 20 million transactions. I know, SpaceBuds Marketplace, there's a few dApps running, of course, but the huge onslaught of dApps hasn't even happened. We've already done 20 million transactions with no problems. This is exactly what we experienced in the early days of Bitcoin, or at least the early days of Bitcoin for me. I wasn't around in 2009, but I was around in that 2012, 2013 period. And the most amazing thing about Bitcoin is that it just ran. It was decentralized and it just ran. Cardano's got 3,000 stake pools, 3,000 different block validators, all just chomping at the bit to validate the next block. They're all going to keep the chain running. It's unstoppable now. We're just going to keep going, and we don't have these same kind of problems that hurt EOS, say, from the beginning, where everybody figured out that a small number of people could roll back the blockchain. I think there's a blockchain in the top 10 right now that has kind of exhibited maybe a similar flaw in that, some number of people could just decide to turn off the blockchain and turn it back on. That's not exactly that same root of trust that made Bitcoin so valuable and is already making Cardano so valuable. We've got another top 10 smart contract blockchain that needs to be completely ripped apart and rebuilt as something new just so that it can scale. And nobody knows when that's exactly going to happen or exactly what it's really going to look like. These are not the kinds of things that build trust. Just like Bitcoin, these things are not true of Cardano. Nobody has to worry what it's going to look like in 2 years. And nobody has to worry that some number of people can get together and turn the blockchain off. It just runs. World Mobile dropped this video. I know most of you will probably remember our discussion about World Mobile's plans to use Aerostats as part of their telecom strategy in Africa. And for a lot of people, it probably almost sounded too good to be true. You're like, are you serious? There's a project in our blockchain ecosystem that's going to be flying these Aerostat balloon things around Africa as part of the strategy to connect the unconnected, and help out with the Zanzibar blue economy stuff. This sounds amazing, but too good to be true. At some point, is Mickey Watkins just going to pop up and be like, just kidding, we weren't really going to fly balloons around? But this video just dropped, and there are honest to God balloons in it. Maybe it's just one balloon. I don't know how many balloons, but there's an honest to God balloon in it. At least one. It's a real balloon. Here we are inside the hangar looking out at the balloon. Later on in the video, the balloon is further in the sky. Look at this, a real balloon. We are all part of a blockchain that has balloons flying around in Africa, connecting the unconnected. Pavia also dropped a much welcome update for us. They've got new avatars. You'll remember the original avatars they had were extremely blocky and super low-tech, pixely looking. And they were just kind of like random images of low-tech avatars that they threw on there to let everybody know there would be avatars, basically. Now they've got these much better looking characters, and there's a little bit of a mystery. They're calling them background characters, so maybe these are more like NPC type avatars. I don't know, but they're background characters, which I guess is a little bit of a hint they were letting us in on the Pavia Twitter. So we got this guy over here. He looks like kind of a rural guy. Over here in North America, he would be like the Murica guy, but he's also got on these, they almost look like cowboy, not really cowboy boots, but almost more like motorcycle boots. So he definitely looks like he's had a few whiskeys and he's ready to fight somebody, despite the fact he's wearing glasses. These two characters look more like normal people, a little bit stern. They look pretty stern, but they look like normal people. They have kind of some stern looks on their faces, like they're judging you from behind the screen. This character over here looks a little bookish. Looks like he spends a lot of time in front of the computer. I think we can tell which gender this avatar is supposed to appeal to. Look at this guy over here. He looks kind of like the enforcer of the bunch. I have no idea what he's enforcing, but he looks like he's definitely some kind of like bouncer or security guy at a bar you probably shouldn't be hanging out in, something like that. But much welcomed addition. I think it's great to see that we are not looking forward to those very pixelated, blocky avatars, and these much cooler avatars are something that might be waiting for us in the future. Cardano 360 is this Thursday. That is going to be Thanksgiving in the US. But Cardano 360 will be going down nonetheless because we are a global blockchain and a global community, and probably the majority of people involved in Cardano have no idea why we have this weird holiday involving a giant bird in the US. The current administration has renominated Jerome Powell to a second 4-year term as chairman of the Federal Reserve. It was a little bit up in the air. We had the dragon in open Senate committee hearings telling Jerome Powell that she thought he was dangerous and she was not going to support his renomination. And I think you had a certain branch of the party of the current administration in Washington that was lobbying pretty hard for it not to be Jerome Powell, but to be Lael Brainerd. And in fact, we ended up with Jerome Powell. It should be interesting to see what happens in his second term as chair, because he's sort of going to be transitioning into a very different economy than in his first term. In his first term, inflation was not a word on everyone's lips. And certainly now, inflation is a reality in the US economy. And you could argue that, sort of much like a White House administration in their second 4-year term, it's right before getting renominated. It's like Powell kind of had to mind his P's and Q's. He had to be careful not to make anybody too mad. And he's still got to go before the Senate for them to confirm, his renomination. But it's now that he's the pick, I feel like he has a little more freedom to actually do what he wants. And I think it's going to be a little bit unclear. You could argue, people are arguing right now that in his first term, he was hyper vigilant in terms of keeping employment high. And in his second term, maybe at the detriment of inflation, maybe it turns out now that we've seen the inflation numbers for October at 6.2% annualized. Now he might have to turn the page and put keeping employment numbers high in second place and controlling inflation in first place. So we could see a very different Jerome Powell going forward after he's done going before the Senate. We could see some very different activity out of the Fed, given that he's made it through this little mini gauntlet with the dragon sort of openly calling for his replacement. We also got another PAB pre-release. Look at all these changes. Slowly, they're just kind of shaping everything up. And some people, I saw at least one person is calling for a full PAB mainnet release by the end of this week. I don't know if that's true. My money is kind of, my rule of thumb is always like double whatever distance to a release in software development, just like double that. So by that logic, of course, I'm like mentally prepared for a December release, but who knows? I mean, it looks like they're getting a lot done. So I think PAB release is we're definitely inching closer and closer to it. And it's going to happen any day now, which of course is going to open the floodgates to that onslaught of dApps, which in a lot of ways changes everything. Finally, we've also crossed another important threshold. Cardano native assets are now reflected in CoinMarketCap. This kind of throws a spotlight on how unprepared the larger crypto space is for some of the game-changing qualities of Cardano in normal token issuances. We can say that, vast majority of what people are used to are ERC20 token issuances on Ethereum, which requires a contract. There's always a contract via which those tokens are being issued. So CoinMarketCap, because that's the paradigm they're used to, they weren't even like prepared to properly reflect where this particular native token is coming from in Cardano. They have this section called contracts. There isn't necessarily a contract in Cardano. And CoinMarketCap isn't even prepared to reflect that. I mean, they're going to have a different field for Cardano, like policy ID or something like that. But right now, they're so ill prepared for it. They just have this contracts filled. And so they're kind of squeezing, the Cardano round peg into the crypto square hole. But this is just, the first of many, many of these kind of adoption things where I think the larger crypto space isn't really prepared or expecting what Cardano is about to bring to the table. I hope you're having a great week, and I will talk to you tomorrow.